I know it's 8 o'clock. Is everybody okay if we start? I know people are gonna trickle in just because of the weather, the last day of the session. So we're all okay for that? Awesome. Perfect. So I am Danielle Knotts. I'm the manager of career pathways with the Gulf Coast Workforce Board, Houston Galveston Area Council. And I'm happy you guys are here with me today to talk about bridging the digital divide for adult education, advocating for literacy in a digital world. You okay? Okay, perfect. Awesome. So who are we? We are the Gulf Coast Workforce Board. We are Workforce Solutions. We are one of 28 boards in the state of Texas. We serve pretty much about 400,000 folks in a year, whether that be through our career offices, through our employer development group, or through Adult Education and Literacy Consortium. The work that we do is very impactful. So we do work with employers with helping individuals either get upskilled or help them fill voids that they have within their workforce. Across the Gulf Coast region, we are one of the largest groups. We are 13,900 square miles. So a little bit under 14,000 square miles. If we were a state, we would be the 42nd largest state just for the Gulf Coast region. And we cover 13 counties along the Gulf Coast region, which makes us very unique. So we're gonna watch a little video. You've probably seen this through a commercial, and then we'll have a little bit of a conversation about it to see if it's relatable, or if you kind of notice anything that kind of stands out to you. Oh, where's our sound? Interesting. One second. Let's see.
Oh, online said, can they hear it?
They can't hear it either?
Somebody said, yes, I can.
But online they can hear it?
Mhm.
Okay. But we can't hear it in here, so it went opposite. Oh my goodness, you guys, this is not happening.
Now they said they can't hear it, but.
I paused it. Okay. For the sake of, no worries. For the sake of the presentation, I'll continue, but I'll give you guys context so the people online will be able to hear it. But if you have seen the commercial at some point, I'll kind of explain what it says. So we'll continue on. So people online, please, you're welcome to hear it.
They are saying they couldn't hear the video, play the video, the audio. I can't hear.
Yeah, because one person, the Dr. Terry Johnson said, yes, I can.
That was when she was speaking, I think.
Okay.
Now no video sound, now there's no video sound.
I apologize. We tried this earlier and it did work, but for context, in the commercial, if you have seen it, this owl is in a doctor's office at a doctor's appointment. And what's happening is that the doctor's asking, asking the owl, I know you can read, right? Because you could talk and you booked an appointment online. But that is filled with so many assumptions. How often do we have people that they can speak, they can book an appointment online, they can order their groceries, they can figure out how to get from point A to point B or utilize text to speech. But in actuality, they are performing at a very low literacy rate if we were to ever assess them with an assessment to gauge their functioning level. So that was the purpose of the video. And I apologize again for not playing online or here, but our tech, it's just, how it kind of works, right? Adult education, or just the way of the world. But that was pretty much the context, is to pretty much to share that we can't make assumptions that a person can, just because a person can speak, doesn't mean that they have great literacy skills. And so with that, when we look at our nation, there are 1 in 5 adults with low literacy skills. That's 43 million folks, right? 43 million adults. 21% of our population in our nation have low literacy skills, which is alarming. But when we take a deeper look at it from a state level, and we look at the top 5 states, And so I know you're from California in the room. So we have California, which has the largest deficit at 23.1% of individuals that have basic low literacy reading and writing skills. And then New York is followed with 22.1%, then Florida at 19.7%, Texas at 19%, and New Jersey at 16.9%. So I am from Texas. I am from the Gulf Coast region. So where we're from, pretty much when we get to that point, we are at the point of, oh my gosh, Houston, we have a problem. We need to figure this out. And so with us figuring it out, we provide services through what we call the Gulf Coast Workforce Board Adult Education and Literacy Consortium. This is how we're able to help bridge the gap in our area. So the Gulf Coast Workforce Board Literacy Consortium, a very long title of a name, right? But it's a very impactful group of folks that work together to help provide direct services in the Gulf Coast region. It's comprised of 3 CBOs and 3 community colleges that you can see on the screen. One of our actual groups, Region 6 Education Service Center, they serve 2 capacities. They serve as our lead provider, but they also provide direct services to 2 county areas in the region too. So they have 2 pieces of work that they do for us. And we've been around for a pretty long time, so it's been working in the structure that we have. We are one of 51 grantees in the state of Texas with the WIOA Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act Title II grants. And so that we're one of 4 boards with this support. So across our workforce board, we have support for individuals in our community from all 4 titles of WIOA. So one thing for us that is impactful and that has made a large impact is our leadership. It's important to have an advocate, but also to have a champion and to have a group of folks that understand the needs of the community so that we can build something that's sustainable. And that has truly been impactful within our workforce system. As shared earlier, we are a workforce board. We actually answer to 2 boards in our area. We answer to the Gulf Coast Workforce Board, and then we take that and we answer to the Houston-Galveston Area Council Board. So it's very unique. Within that, our workforce board has accepted and acknowledged that we do have a deficit in our region. With that, they've not only accepted it, they have included it in our strategic plan of what our challenges are, where we are currently, and how do we make plans to address impact in the region, but also shifting the tone of the region. So in our plan, they actually acknowledge that we have 20 to 25% of individuals in the Houston area that function at a low literacy level. So they struggle with filling out a prescription, filling out a job application. What's the purpose of a workforce board? To get folks to work. So if we know that 20 to 25%, a quarter of our individuals have problems with that, then we know that we really need to do something to try to help those folks get to where they need to be in order to fuel our workforce. Not only have they addressed the deficits and the challenges we have, they've also listed as a strategic priority. So in here, we have strengthening workforce solutions as our first one, promoting educational attainment, second, fostering strategic partnerships, and innovative service delivery, the 4. And then if you look further closer, you see number 2, which is pretty high up on the list of promoting educational attainment, increasing local degree and post-secondary certificate, because we know that is what's needed in order for people to be able to get to work in our region. We also take a look at a number of things such as our data pieces. For our educational snapshot, we have a population of about a little bit under 7.3 million people. Because remember, just under 14,000 square miles. So it's very, very, very wide span. So we have a lot of room for people to move to our region. So a little bit under 7.3 million. Out of that 7.2 million, 1.1 have no diploma. That's a lot. And the individuals that have a diploma is 1.4. Now you put those 2 together, that's about 30, just under 30%. That's a little over a quarter. we don't only just think about the education piece, we also talk about sustainability. As a workforce board, that is one area that is a key focus area for us, is making sure that people are building sustainable lives, not just at the median of making it. So we look at data from additional perspectives of individuals that fall below the poverty line or individuals that are right on the poverty line. And I'm not sure if a lot of you have heard of data from ALICE. So we look at ALICE data also. So below the poverty line, of course, those are individuals that's the threshold set by the government of a threshold below that. And so with that, for the below poverty line, we are at about 13%. But then when we factor in that ALICE piece, those individuals that if they ever have something wrong with their car, groceries, inflation in groceries, they do not have the support for that reserve in the savings account to be able to support that additional cost. And that number is very alarming for us because it's 28% of our 13 county region. And so within ALICE, there are additional states that do participate in this study. So if you were to Google it, it's done with work with the United Way. I know New Jersey is a big component of it, Arkansas, and a number of other states that participate in that piece. So I highly recommend that you look at that. But when we talk about that with our workforce board and our leadership, we're almost at 50% of individuals that fall on that line. So we really had to address all of these pieces, all of these elements into our strategic plan of how do we really meet people where they are and try to upskill them. And so all of those things are listed in our strategic plan that leadership has acknowledged so that they can help advocate for resources to support the region. So we know as a region that in the future, we're going to have growth, but we're going to know that we're going to have some skills gaps in the region. We know that 52% of the jobs that are in the region will require education beyond a high school diploma, but less than a college degree. We also know that we only have 43% of people right now currently that could fill that void. So we are still, again, in that deficit, but that closely aligns to what we're seeing in that education piece that I talked about the 7.2, the 1.1, not having a diploma, and those things. We also know that by 2031, Texas as a state is projected to nationally be 34th for jobs requiring a bachelor's degree, and 10th for jobs requiring a high school diploma or less. So we really have to do a lot of work for those individuals that only have that diploma to get them to some other additional training or credential so that we can help get them either closer to a bachelor's degree if that's what they're interested in, but also trying to help make sure that we have the people that we need in the region to be able to fill the occupations that are coming. So how do we get from where we currently are to where we want to be in the future? Because we just talked about 2031, right? It's 2025. That's around the corner when you look at it. It's like it's a span of a grant, just to be honest with you. So for us, we've taken a regional system-wide approach to try to build resilience in our region. With that, we try to address regional needs to meet individuals where they are. And when I say meet where they are, that's having those tough conversations of acknowledging that we have students that graduate from high school that are not on grade level of post-secondary level to be able to take an AccuPlacer test to enroll into a training course. We acknowledge that, and we try to build strategies and workflows to help those individuals enroll into courses that can support them. We utilize crosswalks to build innovation transition into education pathways. So, and we say crosswalks because as we know, as individuals in the room or that are online, a path does not have to be straight linear to one point to the other, especially with the demographics that we serve or in the climate that we live in. It is important to diversify and know that we do have lattice pieces that we have to utilize in order to help people utilize the skills that they have, utilize the skill that they have in order to be able to join the workforce. We increase the competitiveness through upskilling through employer partners. So we try to work a lot with employers to see what their needs are so that we can take that information back and push it into the system of ISDs, but also community colleges so that we can be providing those trainings. And then also we align to increasing opportunities of workforce training and education by utilizing labor market data. So that's another good thing that we have access to through our Gulf Coast Workforce Board. And then with all of those components and elements, we're able to try to build a more succinct but successful workforce that can be resilient in our time. So it is March. In January, our system developed the first career pathways division that we have never had before. We have employer division, we have youth division, and now we have a career pathways division to kind of really hone in on the importance of building careers for everyone that live in our region, no matter where you are. Within that, we have teacher apprenticeship. We have K through 16 alignment. That also includes the tri-agency regional convener. And we also have adult education and literacy. All of these things together work together to help build career paths for sustainability in our region. In order for us to get to where we need to be and get these folks trained, you have to have people to train them. You have to have people to educate them, right? So what we notice across the span is that there's a shortage of teachers, not only in the K through 12 space, but we look at it from a longitude data piece from the K through 16 space, and including like our preschools and things like that. So we have acknowledged, but also develop a plan to how to address this. So we are working with some philanthropic groups to develop some tier structures of helping individuals enroll into teacher apprenticeships, but not only just to become a teacher, but maybe to become a paraprofessional, and then providing opportunities in a non-traditional manner that provides a pipeline to the career, that provides exploratory learning, hands-on training, but also at a different cost than what it costs for a typical traditional structure. Within our K through 16 alignment, as shared earlier, we have students that are graduating from high school that are unable to pass a 6th grade test to enroll into a construction program. So we notice that we have some gaps. And we need to address those gaps, but also we need to address them by having those individuals enroll into supportive services after they graduate and through adult education. So as you can see, we have adult education right next to it because that could be a entry point for them to get that support, opposed to going straight into a college course where they may take out a loan and then be in more financial hardship, thus adding to our previous slide, which talked about the below poverty line, but also the ALEKS poverty line. Because what we also see is that we have multi-generational families living in one household. So it just adds to that hardship that we're seeing as a region. Am I behind one? I think I was behind. I was talking about adult education next. And so that was the piece here. And sorry. Okay, so next, we're going to go into our natural population. As you can see, you see the state of Texas, 58%, and you see national, 24%. This is the amount of movement that we see as far as people moving in to Texas or around the nation. So transit. So how often are people moving from one location, from one state to another, or within various cities in Texas? What we notice is that within the Gulf Coast region, that little bit under 14,000 square miles, we are at a higher rate of individuals moving from one county to another, which is above the 58%. We are very diverse. You can live in one part of our area and be in a rural area, or you can live in another part of the southern part and be on a beach. So we do see fluctuation, but we also see that employers are moving into our region in certain areas and people are migrating to those areas. With that, it has caused us to be creative in how we build equitable education in our system. As I shared earlier, we have a lot of advocates in our leadership, which has helped us. And that has been key because whenever you have work that you want to do, it costs more, right? We have to invest more funding. And with the investment of funding, we had to invest in curriculum. A lot of people try to stay away from standardization. Oh my God, we can't do standardization because everybody doesn't fit this one box. But we take standardization as a positive because we have so many folks. Remember that percentage for Texas was 58% to move around the region from various states. So from Dallas to Houston or to Lubbock and things like that. We are at a higher rate than 58%. We have 6 providers that provide adult education and literacy in our consortium. So we do have a lot of individuals that move from one area to another within our Gulf Coast region. But in the past, what we found out is that when they move, they may have to start over with a whole new provider, which means a whole new provider may have a different curriculum, which then may cause some regression, right? Because you're changing the curriculum, they're having to learn the new system. And so those withdrawals causes hurt to the student, no matter if they're a young student or old student. So what we did was we incorporated standardization. And so as a system, we invested in curriculum that is standardized across all 6 of our providers. And so in 2023 and 2024, we invested in Burlington English. That was our first step of addressing this with the board to get the approval of, okay, can we do this? This will help in helping try to understand or explanation on why we want to build this out. And so that was approved and we saw great success with it because we saw students that were enrolled in multiple places simultaneously, and it gave them opportunity to continue not only with that one curriculum, but if they were to move to another area, they still had access to it. And they were able to show growth. And then this year we were able to bring on an ABE perspective by utilizing Aztec in the same capacity. So with those 2 things, our leadership understood the need. They accepted it, and then they championed for us to be able to do this, which has helped us. And then the other piece of it is that we share with the students access to our curriculum from day one. We don't have them have to prove, okay, you have to be a student for 12 days to be a participant. No, we want them to know that we are invested in them as much as they're invested in us. And by doing that, we want to go ahead and give them access to the curriculum so they can go ahead and start practicing and using it to see that we are heavily invested in their future. And that has been helpful for us with addressing our digital literacy challenges that we have. And then for us, because we are a workforce system, because we are one of 28 boards and one of 4 boards that have the adult education and literacy grant, we have built systems within our very large system of working with our career offices. So from an adult ed perspective, about 11,000 folks come through the Adult Ed Consortium. But from the workforce perspective, 300,000 on average, minus some childcare. That's the number of people that come in our doors for our career offices. And that includes employers. Sharing information with those groups is essential to helping us as a region move the needle. We have increased awareness by going to do presentations, not only to our offices and employers, to share what resources are available. And so we as a system work with our counterparts within our workforce board at the board staff level to build comprehensive assessments so that they have a great understanding of the entry points that a person can make from adult ed if they are not ready to enter that entry point from a Title I perspective, because we all have very similar targets, but the targets on the Title I side may differ a little bit with that sustainability for wages that we can help offset through the Title II side that we try to utilize. And so that has helped us not only build awareness within our region, but has also helped us ensure that we are properly placing folks so that they're successful at the time that they know that they're ready to start their education journey. And so with that, I know some people expressed, that we were going to talk more about digital literacy pieces. And I know it's a little vague on the description, so I apologize if I didn't cover that. But if you have any questions, I can answer those right now. But I do want to thank you guys for listening to what we're doing in the Gulf Coast region. And so, sure.
So the elephant in the room for all of us, especially immigration states like Texas, is how do we project the mass deportations to impact the traction as well as funding? Hold on, look down. As well as funding for workforce development programs, not intended to be political, more of practical.
Okay, so the question that was just asked about the impact of the climate from administration and the effects of immigration and funding. So for funding for us, we are a direct recipient of the Texas Workforce Adult Education and Literacy Grant. So we are not aware or privy to that information from what's coming down from the state as of current. To our knowledge, we are providing services and we will continue to provide those services to our region with our current funding, but also supporting individuals through other funding streams that we do have, like our teacher apprenticeship is through philanthropic funds. So we do utilize braiding of funding, and that's pretty much all the information I have on that piece.
I would ask, so I love the idea of giving access right away to the students to the Burlington English and Aztec ahead of that 12-hour. And in California, you guys don't necessarily do this, but we have to have 12 direct hours before we can count proxy time. And we separate the direct from proxy. So when you're giving them access, is your data in making sure they're not counting proxy time, or how are they separating that out and making sure they're not double dipping or? So
so the question in the room is, how do we monitor our data entry for proxy time? Because in Texas, in order for those hours to count, a student has to become a participant, which is the 12-hour mark of direct hours. And so because we are a unique consortium, we have our lead provider that has a team of team specialists that does digging and analytics for our data that goes in and does that monitoring for us. So they handle those sticky issues like that. And then we meet weekly and they report those things to us. But also as follow-up, they provide technical assistance ongoing if they notice any anomalies that are continuing to happen to make sure that the understanding on policy and processes that are currently we utilize are being followed properly. Go ahead.
So on the digital literacy training, are you only using the Burlington to do that, or do you have other tools that you use to help develop digital literacy skills with all of the learners who are in all these different places?
So the question in the room is, what digital skills do we utilize for digital learning? And we're talking about digital literacy, correct? And so for us, we have two components actually. So we do a digital assessment. We do that digital assessment by utilize what we have is called Work in Texas. It's directly connected to the Texas Workforce Commission. And if a person's able to complete an application, then we can assess to say that you are digitally literate. If you need some hand holding and are not able to complete the application do uploading of files, then we know that you need support, right? So that's the first piece of it. All of our providers utilize North Star for their digital literacy piece. And so, and then some of our colleges have other pieces that they do bring into fold from their college side of things. So each organization, and that's another beauty of us being a consortium, having access to those other resources through your institution that you can kind of fold into your lessons. And so I do know that some of them utilize the pieces within Aztec and within Burlington English as the digital literacy, but as, I don't want to say a mandate, as a standardization across our consortium, we utilize that starting point with that assessment piece with that work in Texas, because it helps truly showcase our bridge, our divide of that awareness piece with helping with that seamless referral piece too.
So, okay, so the work in Texas, is that like that's like an intake type of a thing? Or, I'm curious to know, so
Mhm.
like, could I complete this from my house, or do I have to?
You
go somewhere?
can actually. So it's multiple ways to
that-
do it.
So then how would you know that that I'm having trouble filling this out?
So that comes into the play of the partner, the subrecipient that we work with in the consortium. So they have staff that's required to work with the student. So as the person is completing their enrollment and they're doing intake, they have to figure out or get the Work in Texas number to see if that person has registered. And then if they see that that has not happened, then they have to follow their next process of having their staff member work with that student to complete the application. And then that'll be an identifier to say that person needs some support within digital literacy.
There's like a checklist in orientation. I see your question mark on your face. It's like a checklist. They have a robust, I think, onboarding process, right?
We do. Yeah.
And so they've got that checklist, and then because we're funded through Texas Workforce Commission, we're very workforce heavy. And so they're kind of checking a box off right at the start. with their
Correct.
Student by forcing through that path, and it's also getting the student to buy into, why do I need to do digital literacy? I'm here to learn English. I'm here to get my GED. Well,
Yes.
here, we just started you off. Here's work in Texas. You couldn't do the job ugly. How are you gonna get a job? Why are you getting your GED? Just to have it? No, to get a job. So that's why they go that pathway. And then all of Texas has access. The Workforce Commission purchased North Star for all of Texas and Education Essential. They like to give them options, but people are getting a little more toward North Star,
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
especially their resource.
Mhm.
Does that help?
Yeah, we know, yeah, we know in California that there are states like Texas that basically purchase the curricular products for statewide. We don't do
Okay.
that in California. And other states are probably, other states are either one way or the other probably.
Mhm.
The checklist, is that something that's publicly available? Can you share that? I'm curious to kind of see what that looks like.
So we have. So the question in the room was along the lines of, are we a group, are we a state that purchases curriculum statewide? And the answer is no. We're a consortium on the Gulf Coast. We purchase it for our coastal or for our consortium members. Other parts of the state that utilize what they have adopted on their sides. As far as our checklist, we have a standardized, unified process for orientation and intake, but also for the first 12 hours. So I'm more than happy to have the team share that with you, but we don't, we're not as dialed down to, you must do step one in an ABCD manner, because remember, we meet students where they are, and a student may have a deficit in a different area that may need ACD opposed to ABCD, if that makes sense how I'm saying it. Okay. But we're more than happy to share, because you guys are doing some great stuff out there, and we're always interested in hearing about what you guys are doing too. Yes.
Sounds like there's an issue of digital literacy and there's an issue of literacy in general. Are you dealing with the larger literacy in general issue, or is this focused on digital literacy? For example, using Burlington, so on.
Mhm.
Is your consortium concerned with the whole literacy issue?
Yes. So the question in the room is our consortium concerned with both digital literacy and literacy in general? And so we are concerned with both because we see the need for both. because everything is moving to an AI, or you must know how to utilize technology to communicate with a teacher, to fill out a job application, and those things. And so they're interchangeable for us. So they're both built into our intake and orientation, as far as that's why we have the requirement to have that assessment on digital literacy embedded in the work that we do. And then literacy is addressed across our system as a whole. So on that last piece, when I talked about the comprehensive assessment, that comprehensive assessment is being done by our career office staff. They're not funded through our AEL staff. So they're taking that information, and by us being a part of the workforce board, it allows us to really build synergy across our system from multiple groups.
They literally do it all in adult ed. And they're connected, Houston in particular, their consortium is connected to every piece from K through 12. And then the gaps where K through 12, somebody fell through the gaps, or they graduated and they can't get into a career program because they can't test high enough.
Correct.
And they're also partnered with community colleges.
Correct.
And they're partnered with the workforce, so they go from everything, they do everything. And they have, I think, the largest in Texas, or is that?
At largest in Texas, as far as
I
which
think
one?
it's the largest.
The workforce board?
Student-wise.
Or
I think
the
half of them is
grants?
adult ed students.
I'm not sure in the new iteration if we are, I haven't looked at it yet, but in the past, we have been the largest.
Yeah.
Typically fall that way, but I mean, it's kind of like a good thing, is in the way of the weight. Yeah, we carry a lot of weight, but in a good way. With that, a lot of the weight, we carry a lot of the individuals that have that low literacy level too. So it's the good and bad. And for those online, if you could not hear, information was being shared that across our system within Houston Galveston area, we do touch every piece of work that we do. We do workforce, we do literacy, we do work preparation, we do apprenticeships. And so in that model where I kind of showcase teacher apprenticeship, but also the K through 16 convener alignment, that helps us truly identify individuals to enroll or onboard in wherever they fall, to ensure that we are not hurting one vein of our system, but we're helping in the back end identify where that person should enter so that that person can matriculate through our system. I like to use the example that it's okay to explain to people that from birth all the way up to your season years of life, you can work with the workforce. It's nothing wrong with it. And it's actually true. A person can be born and their parent can be receiving services for childcare. They can come back as an adult or a student and work with us where they're a youth, and work within the workforce and get support through Title I. They can come back and get support through adult education and literacy. We have 14 training programs that we offer through adult education and literacy that are also on our high skill, high growth lists that are funded with Title I funds. So we have 14 that are on 2 different lists, but 2 different funding streams, which helps create that opportunity for stackable journey to be created. And then a person can come back and receive services for employment support or job exploratory support, apprenticeship support in their adult years of their life or in their youth. And then a person can come back and go through our area on aging as a seasoned individual before they're ready to go on to the next phase of their life. So it's okay to be a part of our system for birth to life.
I'll share, I did Region 6 for my teaching certification when I lived down in Houston proper. I've been a student in their system, but then I moved. I really support the group. They have a lot to teach the areas.
Sure thing.
Back to the North Star and Central Ed. So is it that you said Texas purchases it for statewide use? Or how like in your region, can you decide whether or not to use North Star, or are you obligated to?
Correct. So as the director of the consortium, I can decide what to use. We don't operate in that manner. because we are a consortium with a unique group of population. And so we do have pockets in our region. As I shared, you can live in rural area, or you can live near the beach, or you can live in the city where it's heavily congested with a mix of a population, right? So when we make decisions as far as the adoption of Burlington English and adoption of Aztec, we do that as a consortium group. We try to be very inclusive in our decision-making before we present those items to our board for the next steps of what direction we will take. By doing that, we have regular meetings with our consortium members where we pretty much take the entire day with a lengthy agenda. And some of those items may be on it where we do those whiteboard sessions to figure out what will meet the needs of all the members of the consortium, but what will meet the needs of the region, and try to find a happy medium to make sure that whichever direction we do go in, it is sustainable for all, but also usable for all. Because as we know, digital equity is a whole new door of problems and challenges that we all face. And so we have to acknowledge that, but we also have to get that information from our providers so that we can acknowledge it not only at the boots on the ground level and my level, but I have to be able to advocate and bring that up to leadership to express what we are seeing so that they can help us be champions to their groups to push it back down to us. And so I guess in general, what I guess my overall premise of trying to share with you all is, for us as a region, leadership, being an advocate and a champion for us has been instrumental in the work that we do.
So, okay, so for example, like all these different products that are out there, North Star, essentially, and Aztec. So, does your consortium, if you decide, let's say you decided you wanted all four of them, for example.
I want it all.
All four of those tools. You
Well,
want,
North Star and Ed Essential are already paid for this cycle of
Mhm.
grants
but that's.
by
so-
the Texas Workforce.
Okay,
Commission.
but that's my
There's
question
no, like,
is,
force-
but your consortium still has to decide that you wanna have. North Star.
Yes, they're free to
And you still
decline.
want it, and you still wanna have essential ed, it's your decision whether you want it or not.
Yeah, which they're declining essential ed right now. They have sheets and their computer essential.
But then with the
Yes.
Burlington and the Aztec,
Mhm.
They decide.
and your consortium is paying for those directly?
Correct.
Okay.
So that was
So
purchased
it's
as
a mix
consortium.
of, it's kind of a mix of things.
It is a mix. And so for the people online, we're trying to understand the purchasing of, for Houston, Galveston area, how do we purchase the various curriculums? Because some of the purchases do come from the state and some of them come from our consortium from the board staff level for us pulling those funds out to make that direct purchase for the providers.
That's, okay, good. All right, so I had an incorrect understanding, that's good.
No
My other
worries.
question was, it's curious to me that you mentioned at the very beginning that there are, I think you said 51-ish.
Mhm.
Folks that are WIOA funded, or entities that are WIOA funded in Texas. And so you said your consortium is WIOA funded. Is that
So
correct?
so the question online, so for folks online,
Actually, my real question is, does that mean then that all the providers within your consortium are WIOA funded?
so for the folks online, we are discussing how we're funded and what that, how we're funded, but also how does that funding funnel down to our subrecipients within our consortium. So yes, we are one of 51 grantees with the state for the Adult Education and Literacy Grant, which is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, Title II. So that's the one group of title. Within our consortium of our 6 providers, they each receive funds from our grant to support their programs for adult educational literacy. That is not to say that they do not utilize other funds that they may have applied for in other divisions of their organization or within that same division of organization to support the grant also. So we are very big advocates of braiding funding in our consortium because it creates sustainability. But also provides some flexibility because with our state funding, we're held to some very strict constraints.
So each of the 3 community college partners in your consortium are all WIOA funded. Like that's one of the funding sources. Okay.
So yes, they do have a funding source of WIO Title II.
Okay.
But also others.
I'll just say, it's interesting in California, that's not the case.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, the vast majority of WIO funded agencies are in California, it's K-12 adult education schools or something.
Mhm.
There's a very small number of community college folks who are WIO funded and only for non-credit.
Oh.
They tend to get their money, community colleges tend to get their money elsewhere. So they have lots of different pots of money,
Mhm.
one of which is WIO funding.
Okay.
And it's not, like, say, across the community college system, it's not. There's a few folks out there that are doing it, so.
Okay. And it is and so for the folks online, it was mostly a comparison of how the funding is funneled and in the California area compared to making a comparison to how we're funded in the Texas area. And so within our iteration of our grant with the state, because we are a consortium, there were parameters set for us that limits the number of people that could be within a consortium, right? And so there are a number of other colleges and ISDs that do have the grant with the state. I do not know the breakdown of that because that's higher than me. It's in a different area. So I just focus on my little 14,000 square miles, that's plenty enough for me to, to work with.
They're
Um,
30. I think for the ADL with TWIC in their consortium comprises one. There used to be 300.
So it's broken out into two different groups of like
Right.
243, 231.
Yeah.
So if we were to sit here and not talk all day,
Yeah.
like it would be like, Lord, let's get a board out here or something like that, But a lot of our colleges, just in general, or a lot of our CBOs in general, everyone definitely looks for other support systems for funding, just because it's not a lot of money. And so really, that's why we have, when you saw that pie chart of the teacher apprenticeship and the K through 12 alignment, those two groups are through two totally different grants. The teacher apprenticeship is with a philanthropic group that's doing work with us called the Houston Endowment. And the K through 12, the K through 16 is utilizing the WIOA Title I funding, but also has additional support with an additional grant for the workforce convener, which is the Texas Higher Education Hiring Board and Texas Education Agency and the Texas Workforce Commission, which brings in additional funding to support that. And so that's one of the reasons why that Career Pathways group was founded, so that we can truly identify what these fundings look like, how can we utilize the braiding, but how can we leverage the various streams to ensure that we're putting people where they're supposed to be, so that it could be so that we can utilize the correct funding before we touch another funding, so that another person that's ready for it can come in and touch on that part where they are. Yeah.
It's a complex.
Yes, ma'am.
Question on that.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
How many language groups do you typically enroll in your consortium? How do you help onboard them, especially those who speak little to no English?
So the first question is, how many language groups do we enroll into our consortium? I do not have that type of data with me,
Houston?
but we do.
It's 50 for sure, because Austin is 50. You guys are word cities. So the last I knew, it was 70+ languages were spoken in the Houston area that were reported in regular.
So luckily for me, I've been in a room with our TCall folks who has been helping me since 6:30. What time did we get? Whatever time we got here this morning. And so was able to share some data on the number of languages we have just in our Houston area of over 70. So we really don't restrict the number of languages that we enroll. We understand that linguistic support is linguistic support. It doesn't matter if you speak Farsi or Spanish or Mandarin. Learning the concepts is learning the concepts. And so we start somewhere with people by meeting them where they are. That's why we utilize the support of the Burlington English, but also we have in-class face-to-face support. I don't recall your second question, I'm sorry.
How do you help onboard them, especially those who speak little to no English? So you kind of just touched
So
on-
how do we help onboard
Onboard.
individuals that speak very limited English? Well, we do have, when, everything we do is online as far as our application, so we utilize that translate button quite a bit. As a workforce board, thankful that we are a workforce board, we do have translation assistance, English assistance, that people are able to call for the language line and get assistance through that too. And that's accessible to everybody in our region.
Also, the state of Texas has a call center and they have a translation service. So anytime there's a student trying to be a student and they don't have translation on site, they simply call the call center and ask for translation and help getting into that
That's,
application.
and that's the one
But
we
that's
use.
Texas only.
You're saying, that's the one we use, the
Yeah,
workforce?
yeah,
Yes.
well, yeah, the
Yeah.
call center for like tech support, and we have a translation.
Are you talking about
service.
through A&M
Yes,
T-Call? Okay,
yeah.
so Texas T-Call for our technical assistance also provides additional services outside of our workforce board for the
Right.
folks online.
I wanted to ask you, I wanted to go back, one of your very first slides
Uh-huh.
had, was it 4.8 million or 48 million? 4.8 million with that lower literacy, it was one of your very first slides, and you have this beautiful data number.
We were talking about the states, the nation.
The nation.
So as a nation, 43 million,
That's
21%
right.
of folks have low literacy.
So I know the director of T-Call shares a sobering statistic that in the country that millions of people that don't get services
Mhm,
nationally where funding is available is
mhm.
only 3%.
That don't receive service.
3% of the cost
Mhm.
is covered. That there's just
Unbelievable.
not funding, that it's
Yeah.
difficult to find. And I loved how you said you apply when there's somebody that's like ready to be put. I love that you said that, how your group is forward thinking about.
We're trying to be very forward thinking, but our key word that we utilize across our workforce board staff, but also across our system, is that we try to be very intentional. And so being intentional allows for the opportunity to have those philosophical conversations with folks that help them enter where they should enter. Because when we start talking about adult ed, it comes with a negative connotation because you may be 23 and you may not want to consider yourself as an adult, but you may want to enroll in the HVAC course. But you need the content and the support, for the contextualized support to be successful on that test. And so by changing the negative connotation of adult education and literacy to career pathways, it makes it a little bit more digestible to help have those philosophical conversations with people to identify where people should enter, but also upskilling our staff to make sure that they understand what services we offer, who qualifies for services, and handling that in the back room, so that when they do provide the information to the student, it's a seamless transition of enrollment. Eric, I see Shelley's hand up. Okay. And I don't think, Shelley, I don't think I have voice. Okay,
Oh,
thank
so
you.
maybe that's from there, because I don't see a hand on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, if there are no further questions, I want to thank you guys for coming to the conversation. I hope that it was what you expected and what you needed. We will load this on the portal so that you guys can have the information. If you ever have questions on how we do things or what we do, or are interested in our standardization and access and structure, please reach out. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. I'm happy you are here too.